So, I watched Reminiscence, and despite it being ravaged by critics and audiences alike, I kinda really liked it. If you don't know, Reminiscence takes place in the not-too-distant future Miami. Because of climate change, large portions of the city are flooded, and people usually only come out at night due to the heat. Hugh Jackman runs a business where people can use a machine to relive their memories. After Hugh Jackman's mysterious girlfriend goes missing, he finds himself in the center of a conspiracy. This movie seems like a love it or hate it sort of thing, and I can understand why someone would dislike this movie. The biggest thing I see people disliking is the dialogue and tone. This movie is an homage to old film noir, and the dialogue seems right out of a 1940s film. The conversations in this movie aren't realistic and are high melodrama. Hugh Jackman will frequently wax poetically, both in his internal narration and to other characters of the movie. If this sounds annoying to you, or if you don't like unrealistic, grandiose dialogue in an over-sentimental story about the nature of nostalgia and memory and caring for people, then you probably won't like this movie. I can see why in a market where everything has to be either gritty and realistic or sarcastic and self-aware, this movie would fail. Now that we've discussed the dialogue and tone, let's move on to the story. As I said, this movie is about Hugh Jackman trying to find his missing lover in a flooded Miami. Most of the story is dedicated to Hugh Jackman solving the Chinatown-like conspiracy involving this disappearance. I thought the story was fun and interesting, even though it got a little bit clunky in the third act. I can't go into details without spoiling the story, so I will move on to my favorite aspect of the movie, the world building. I love the universe of this movie so much and would love to watch more movies in this world. Unfortunately, this movie did terrible at the box office, so the chances of that are slim to none. The world feels real and lived in, and the world building is done in a casual and realistic manner. It's rarely done as exposition, and it's mostly characters talking about the rest of the world and events that would be common knowledge to the characters but not the audience. It's great and I love it. The one gripe I have with the world building though is the costume design. It's supposed to be super hot in Miami, so much so that people usually only go out at night, yet because of the retro style, Hugh Jackman is frequently wearing long sleeve button downs and it really bothers me. Like he would be having a fucking heat stroke. Another thing that bothers me, and this is kind of minor, there's a drug in this film called baka, which just like, why?
You sussy baka!
Now let's talk about Fallout. Aspects of this movie really feel like a pre-war Fallout fan film. Not set in the 2070s, mind you, but this movie could easily be canon with Fallout and take place in the 2020s, 2030s of the Fallout universe. This movie is directed by the co-creator of the Westworld series. Both her and her husband / other co-creator are fans of video games and have talked about their influence in Westworld. They don't mention Fallout in the interview I read, but they are directing the Fallout series for Amazon, which makes me wonder, was this a repurposed Fallout film / episode script for the series? The movie isn't as retro-futuristic as Fallout, which is to the movie's detriment, as some of the retro elements feel out of place, but there's still a strong Fallout vibe throughout, with sultry lounge singers and people wearing a hat and three-piece suits. The whole film honestly feels like one of Nick Valentine's quests in Fallout 4, especially since one of the main plot points is the chairs from the memory den. Let's talk about the acting in this movie. All of the leads are great, but multiple of the side characters are giving some of the worst performances I've seen in my life. There are people playing cliche cops, and it reminds me of the Kasim G sketch. Daniel Wu from the amazing show Into the Badlands shows up for 2 scenes and gives the worst conceivable Louisiana accent. He sounds kinda like, "We do things a little different round here, Hugh Jackman. I want some jumbo with shrimp crawfish." That's what he sounds like. He's also chewing the goddamn scenery, like just biting into it and tearing. Because of the tone and because I like Daniel Wu as an actor, it's not as bad as it could be, but I can see how people would find it very distracting. Oh, and this movie has an amazing score that really sets the tone. It's done by the same guy who did Westworld, which also had a great score. There's only two action scenes in this movie, one of which is okay, and the other is pretty good. The first one is a shootout, which kind of has people just standing out in the open and shooting each other, and it's pretty generic. The other is a fist fight that goes on for 5 minutes, and reminds me of Mortal Kombat, where people are using, like, stage items, because Hugh Jackman and the other guy are just, like, throwing random shit at each other, including, like, knocking over a sign and, like, falling through the fucking floor. I really liked it, even though it's a little bit over the top. The cinematography in this movie is fine, it's nothing to write home about, it's just average movie. It's kind of like Westworld, where the cinematography is just average and it's more about the sci-fi concepts. All in all, Reminiscence is a movie you'll either love or hate. If you're a big fan of old noir films, fun sci-fi world building, or a Nick Valentine's quest in Fallout, you'll probably like this film. If not, this probably isn't the film for you. I would definitely recommend this film if it seems interesting to you. I really don't understand why it's so hated by audiences and critics alike. I could definitely see this movie becoming a cult movie that people bring up on Reddit years after its release every few months to talk about how it's underrated gem. I can't wait for 5 years from now when everyone still hates this movie or has forgotten it, for people to put this clip in a compilation called Bardic Inspiration's Worst Takes and Predictions. Anyway, what's your favorite Hugh Jackman film? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Bye bye!